September 1983. The Cold War was burning hotter than at any point since the Cuban Missile Crisis and one mistake could ignite Armageddon. The early 1980s marked one of the most dangerous chapters in the nuclear standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both superpowers had accelerated the deployment of new missile systems. NATO's Pershing II missiles, capable of reaching Moscow in minutes, deeply alarmed the Kremlin. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union had just shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007, killing all 269 civilians aboard, a tragedy that further worsened relations. Soviet leaders, convinced that the US might be preparing a surprise nuclear strike, placed their forces on heightened alert. Their early warning systems were under immense pressure to detect any incoming attack instantly. Every radar signal, every satellite reading carried the weight of global survival. It was in this atmosphere of extreme paranoia that Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, a 44-year-old officer in the Soviet Air Defense Forces, took his post at Serpukhov 15, a secret early warning bunker outside Moscow. His job was simple but terrifying. Use the Soviet satellite system, OKO, to determine whether the United States had launched nuclear missiles and immediately report any threat to the Kremlin. If the system detected an American strike, the Soviet leadership would have mere minutes to decide whether to retaliate, launching thousands of nuclear warheads that could kill hundreds of millions. The margin for error was zero. Yet unknown to Petrov, the Soviet early warning system had a critical design flaw, one that would soon trigger the most dangerous false alarm in history. And the fate of the world would rest on one man's judgment. The next 15 minutes would determine whether humanity lived or vanished in nuclear fire. Just past midnight on September 26, 1983, the unthinkable happened. At 12:40 a.m., sirens erupted inside the bunker. A red warning flashed on Petrov's monitor. Launch detected, United States Minuteman missile. The Soviet satellite system claimed that the U.S. had fired a nuclear missile toward the USSR. Protocol demanded immediate escalation. Petrov had to notify his superiors, who would then alert the Soviet High Command. In minutes, Moscow would decide whether to launch a counterstrike. Petrov froze. A single missile? It didn't make sense. A real nuclear first strike, he believed, would involve hundreds of missiles, not one. He suspected a system error, but he had no proof. Then the alarm sounded again. Second missile detected, then a third, then a fourth, then a fifth. 5 incoming American missiles. The system insisted the attack was real. Petrov now faced an impossible decision. Assume the system was wrong and risk leaving the USSR defenseless, or assume it was right and trigger a nuclear counterattack that would annihilate the world. His superiors were waiting for his official classification. Real launch or false alarm. Every second mattered. The Soviet leadership had less than 10 minutes to respond before the supposed missile struck. Inside the bunker, officers panicked. The screens kept flashing. The sirens wouldn't stop. Petrov looked at the data again. Something felt wrong. The satellite system was new. Its reliability was untested, and 5 missiles were not enough for a U.S. first strike. His instincts screamed that this was a mistake. He made his choice, a choice that defied military protocol. He reported false alarm. If he was wrong, the Soviet Union would be destroyed in minutes. Petrov had gambled humanity's future on a gut feeling. After he declared the warning a false alarm, the bunker fell into a tense, unnatural silence. Officers stared at the monitors, waiting for confirmation. Either explosions on Soviet territory or proof that the satellites were wrong. Outside, Soviet missile forces remained on high alert. If the incoming missiles struck, Moscow could still order a counterstrike. Thousands of warheads were ready for launch. The chain of escalation was one phone call away. Petrov quietly reviewed the data again. The satellite system, OKO, relied on infrared sensors that detected the heat of missile launches. But the night was unusually calm. No radar stations reported incoming missiles. Only the satellites insisted an attack was underway. Time crawled. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. Every passing second felt like an eternity. If real missiles had been launched, they should have hit by now. Officers exchanged nervous glances, whispering nervously under their breath. Everyone knew what was at stake. Finally, at the moment when the missile should have reached Soviet airspace, nothing happened. No explosions, no impact, no radar confirmation. The room exhaled. It had been a false alarm. Later investigations revealed the cause. A rare alignment of sunlight reflected off clouds had fooled the satellite's sensors, creating phantom missile signatures. Petrov had been right, and his refusal to follow protocol had prevented global nuclear war. But the world would not learn his name for decades. And the danger was far from over. Instead of praise, Petrov faced suspicion and punishment. The Soviet military was furious that its prestigious satellite system had failed so catastrophically. Admitting the flaw would embarrass high-ranking officials, weaken strategic confidence, and reveal vulnerability to the United States. The last thing the Kremlin wanted was an internal scandal. So they did what the Soviet system often did. They buried the incident. Petrov was reprimanded for improper record-keeping during the crisis, a technical pretext to avoid acknowledging his correct judgment. His career stalled. He was not promoted. His mental and physical health declined. In truth, he had saved the world, but he could not tell anyone. For years, he lived quietly, nearly forgotten, working simple jobs to support his family. Meanwhile, the Cold War continued. NATO and the Warsaw Pact held massive military exercises. Both sides remained seconds away from apocalypse. And the world, unaware of the danger it had narrowly escaped, continued on as if nothing had happened. It wasn't until after the collapse of the Soviet Union that the incident finally emerged. A retired Soviet general revealed that Petrov had prevented a nuclear war. Western historians and officials were stunned. Many acknowledged that his split-second decision likely saved hundreds of millions of lives, perhaps more. Still, Petrov received little recognition during his lifetime. Only later was he honored quietly by peace organizations and foreign governments. But the world he saved remained largely unaware of how close it had come to destruction. And this was only one of several nuclear near misses the public never learned about. History is shaped by leaders, but sometimes it is saved by a single anonymous officer following his conscience. The Petrov incident revealed a terrifying truth. Humanity's survival often hangs on fragile systems, imperfect technology, and the judgment of individuals under unimaginable pressure. Petrov was trained to follow orders. Instead, he trusted logic over protocol, intuition over fear. His reasoning was simple yet profound. A real American first strike would involve hundreds of missiles, not 5. This calm analysis in a moment of extreme tension prevented an irreversible chain reaction. Had he reported the alert as real, the Soviet leadership could have launched a retaliatory strike. The United States would have responded in kind. Europe, North America, and the Soviet Union would have been devastated within hours. Global civilization might not have survived. Decades later, Petrov's act is recognized as one of the most important individual decisions in human history. He did not consider himself a hero. He said he simply did what he thought was right. But his story remains a critical warning. Nuclear weapons do not require bad intentions, only a mistake. Petrov's legacy is a reminder of human fragility and responsibility. A single false alarm, a single overreaction, or a single miscalculation could shape the fate of nations. His courage and restraint saved the world on a night when machines tried to start a war. In the shadow of nuclear weapons, humanity survives not by power, but by the wisdom and humanity of those who refuse to panic when the world is seconds from destruction.